Yes, welcome back to another F1 2021 My Team Career Mode video, where today we're joined for the Belgian Grand Prix. So we're racing around SPA-FRANCORCHAMPS in today's race. It's my favourite racetrack on the F1 calendar, so hopefully this ought to live up to expectations. It's not only my favourite race in the F1 calendar, it's also one of the oldest and most historic circuits going, with corners like Eau Rouge and Podium, which may not actually end up passing the proper safety regulations if they were to be built now, end up creating this atmosphere of dread and fear as every time a car flies through these high-speed corners. And to me, I think that just encapsulates the beauty of the sport, really. Just having 20 highly skilled pilots operate these well-engineered missiles, it's just crazy to think, and especially around a circuit like Spa, you just end up with this amazing racing atmosphere. So yeah, you can probably tell I'm very excited to get into this episode. And before we do, we are struck with a bunch of engine components that have just worn away, and we're going to have to take some grid penalties, unfortunately. I think all of our components are above that 35% mark, so I think rather than just taking one or two here and then saving the next for a couple in a few races time, why not take the whole column now, and then we just got that out of the way, and we just start with this race weekend with a fresh engine and carry that forward in the next half of the season. And as you can see on screen to confirm, we are now halfway through the season. We're currently sitting on 16 points, but we're not far off of getting above Pierre Gasly there. So he's on 25 points, and there's about 4 or 5 cars in between us. So that's the potential of where we could end up by the end of the season if we keep playing our cards right. And right at the top of the leaderboard, the World Championship is just split by 1 point at the moment. So both Mercedes drivers are on fire at the minute, and as it is so close at the top, both drivers are going to be feeling the pressure. You know, they're going to have to perform week in, week out. So getting a good result in today's race will be essential to carry their momentum forward in the season. Meanwhile, before we get into today's race weekend, we had a development event that we had to attend to, and that was whether or not we wanted to give Drugovich a break from his training routine. A break would have seen him gain a +7 in his awareness, but a -5 in his racecraft, or vice versa. So he would have gained more in his racecraft and lost -5 in his awareness. And we decided to keep him on to train a bit extra because he hasn't been doing too well in the races recently. I know he showed his performance in Hungary, until he had to DNF and retire from the race. But up until that point, he had a great qualifying session, and he was almost in the points. He was just behind us in the race until we started having some car issues. But we decided to keep him on just because I thought his racecraft probably needed a bit more work than his awareness did. So hopefully, with that extra bit of training and with any bit of luck, he'll actually keep up this good form and begin to show his worth and try and aim for those points in the near future. So on board with us, and we're just trying to get used to this track a little bit. We haven't driven around this track on the F1 2021 game, and we go spinning around Podium just like that. It's a difficult corner, and any touch on the curb whilst you're accelerating, it's just not going to end well. Lucky for us, there's enough runoff to save the car from smashing into the wall, but for us right now, yeah, like I was saying, we're just trying to get used to the track. I mean, we've already got that grid penalty, so there's no chance of us moving up the table into qualifying sessions, but I just really wanted to see where the car was at and trying to see who we should be aiming for in tomorrow's race. I mean, we're around the Alpine cars as of right now, but I think possibly we could be aiming for the Aston Martins and the AlphaTauris, but we'll have to see in Sunday's race.
Welcome along then to the Belgian Grand Prix, the race that gave us the maiden victory for the Jordan team in 1998. And in the same team, the phenomenal debut of a young Michael Schumacher. There's always something special around one of the many corners of this fan favourite circuit. So here we are once again, ready to go racing through the Ardennes forest. 4.35 miles of long straights, fast corners and massive elevation changes. It makes this not only one of the most exciting circuits on the calendar, but one that makes for some consistently high quality racing as well. Simply put it, there really is no place quite like Spa. And with me as usual is Anthony Davidson. Let's have a chat about McLaren. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within that team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do, and that's definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
With the race minutes away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. An immense lap from Lewis Hamilton yesterday puts him on pole position, edging out Lando Norris, who'll start from P2. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Bottas, Ricciardo, Max Verstappen and Perez, Leclerc, Sainz, Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda, Fernando Alonso, Stroll, Kimi Raikkonen and Vettel, Ocon, Giovinazzi, George Russell and Mick Schumacher, Latifi, Mazepin, Drugovich, they've taken a grid penalty, and Shah. It's almost time for those 5 red lights to go out. Then let's see who can prevail today.
So as predicted, we're still starting from the back of the grid, and I think with that 55 grid place penalty, we weren't really suspecting to move up any places anytime soon. But that's not to say we can't be moving up places on the grid in today's race. So a big day ahead of us today, but right now we've got to sort out our strategy for today's race, and I think we're going to go on the mediums first and then onto a short stint of the softs right at the end to try and blitz past the opposition when they're going to be wounded the most. You know, their tyres are going to be depreciating a lot at the end of the race, especially around a circuit like Spa, where it's one of the longest circuits in the F1 calendar. Their tyres are really going to start to be feeling it, and I think going on the mediums first when we can sort of keep up with the opposition around us will be the key today. But to 5 red lights we go from the back of the grid at the Belgian Grand Prix, and we are underway. It's a bit of a slow start against all of our opponents. Drugovich gets a great start as he looks to make a dive down the inside. We follow him down there and actually go further down the inside, and we're actually side by side with him now as we go through turn 1, make a bit of contact with him unintentionally. I think we just lose the back end slightly, so I'm praying that little bit of damage on his front wing there won't cost him any time as we go down. Radion Rouge trailing behind Drugovich, almost pushing him through this sector, getting a bit of a wobble on the exit. It's some great racing between the two of us, dipping a tyre onto the grass as we go sailing past him, and now we can look to make the dive bomb on Schumacher. The Haas driver there left the door wide open for us, but we closed the door on him on the exit, giving him a slight bit of room to work with, but just enough so he stays on the track. And now we're up into P18, following the likes of Russell, Ocon, I think that's Stroll and Sebastian Vettel slightly further ahead. So we made some good progress at the beginning of this race, and now we can look to build upon this and catch Russell maybe in this next sector. But now Schumacher is coming back at us. He had a great exit off that corner down into Podium. It's side by side racing, but we keep our foot in there and manage to make that work. I think maybe if Schumacher was a little bit more ballsy there, he could have made that move, but luckily enough for us, we keep the position for now. Meanwhile, here's the start of the race as Lewis Hamilton gets an amazing start off the line, and now he doesn't even need to worry about Bottas behind him, as it's Lando Norris who's up into P2 as he jumped the fin off of the start of the grid. So Bottas has some hard work and catching up to do. He has to put a shift in today if he stands any chance of keeping with Lewis in today's race and keeping with the championship fight, as recently he's been slipping away from this championship. But that's not to say he's not still in with a chance. He's only 1 point off of Lewis, but his race performances have just been showing him slip away when he needs it most, and it looks to me that Lewis is dominating this season so far. But back on board with ourselves now, and we're still behind Russell as we enter lap number 2. And I think if we're not able to keep up with the Brit right now, I think today's race could be a really sorry showing for us. It could be a really bad performance, and the softs could really prove their worth over the mediums if they're able to get away from myself. And if I'm not able to keep up with them. But right now, as we enter through Eau Rouge, we're still sticking with Russell, still behind him. And now we've got plenty of ERS to use down the Camel Straight. Now we're looking to the left, right, which way are we going to go? Go to the left. Russell defends to the inside. We go sailing round the outside into turn 7 and 8. He's still there on my right hand side as we enter turn 9 now. Close the door on him and just about managed to keep the car on the road there, and we almost skid off the track. I saw my life flash before my eyes as we got too much on the curb just then, and yeah, that could have ended in disaster. So the mediums are proving to hold up against the softs right now, as we're now catching up onto the back of Ocon in the same place as we got George Russell down the Camel Straight, looking to get the slipstream on the Frenchman. We both got DRS flowing, so that cancels each other out, and we have to use our raw pace and ERS only as we go through round the outside into the yellow flagged area. Luckily for us, it turns green just as we make the overtake on Ocon, and it's not an illegal overtake. Let's have a look into why the yellow flags were being waved in that sector. And Hamilton just gets too much on the curb and he spins it. The leader of this race, Lewis Hamilton, leading the championship as well, has just let his rival and teammate Valtteri Bottas go past, and he's got a free run into getting maximum points here in the Belgian Grand Prix. So Lewis Hamilton, he's down out of the points right now. Yeah, look at that, he just spins it on the curb. I think he accelerates while he's poking his front right tyre onto that yellow and red curb, and that just spins him round and into the barrier. But luckily enough for him, I don't think he has any car damage, so he continues in this race. He must just have some rubber that's worn away on his tyres, and surely he's going to want to do an earlier pit stop than a later one in today's race. So although it is disaster for Lewis Hamilton, he did manage to save his car, so it's not the end of the world, and he's not leaving here with 0 points today if he can still manage to claw his way back up into the points, which I'm sure that Mercedes car can do. But like we've said before, it is a marathon and not a sprint race, so he's got the time and the laps to be able to make it work. As we make the dive bomb on Sebastian Vettel, he leaves the door open into the hairpin, and we only just about manage to get past him as he tries to barge us tighter into the corner and tries to close the door on us. I don't think we've got any damage though. Our front wing looks okay to me, and I think it was just maybe a little bit of scraping side pod, so maybe a little bit of love lost there between myself and Vettel, especially after the Austrian Grand Prix where he span us round. So maybe a little bit of payback from myself, but nevertheless, we're now onto the back of Giovinazzi, making the dive down the inside into the chicane just before we enter lap number 7, and that was a beautiful move as we managed to close the door on the Italian and not let him pass. Moving away up into lap number 7 now, and we're moving past a couple of cars have made their pit stop already. So I think Gasly and Sainz just made their pit stop onto their medium tyres, so they've got to go the distance now till the end of the race if they want to make the one stop work. Meanwhile for us, we've still got like another 7 or 8 laps to go until we can make our pit stop, our one and only pit stop. So managing our tyres will be key for us today as we can now look onto the back of Alonso. We've got the overwhelming pace somehow, getting the slipstream, getting a massive toe. He defends to the inside, defends better than Giovinazzi did. We're still there though, going through the chicane. Fernando giving us just about enough room to work with, and now it's a drag race down into turn 1. Fernando gets the better exit out of the last corner, but we use the overwhelming ERS into turn 1, going round the outside. We're still side by side going into Radion. I think we just about made the move work though, but no, Fernando comes right back at us on the right hand side into Radion Rouge, going 180-90 miles per hour into that corner, and somehow we're still neck and neck into the Kemmel Straight. We just about get past him with maybe a little bit of a better racing line, but now we got to defend into turn 7 and 8. Defending to the inside, managed to park a car in a nice position for Fernando not to make the dive bomb on us, and I think we can hold the position for now. But what a battle that was. Let's just have a look at the replay of that battle, because my word, that was in some intense racing just then. Look at this, going side by side down into Radion Rouge. No driver wanting to let off on the throttle, no driver wanting to concede position as we go side by side down into the Kemmel Straight now. What a move that was, and it's just something you love to see in F1. Both drivers just not wanting to let up at all, and that just makes up for some spectacular racing, really does. But back on board with ourselves, Stroll makes his way into the pits, as does a few other drivers. Raikkonen ahead, Hamilton as well. So the Brit who span out in turn 3 goes into the pits right now, and so that moves us up into P4. So somehow from the back of the grid, we've made our way up into this position. It's just going to be interesting to see if our tyres can go the distance until the pit stop, and whether we're going to stay ahead after the others, after we make our pit stop, and just to see if the other drivers on the medium tyres can sort of keep up with the pace I'm at. Maybe I'll actually be able to stick in this position, we'll have to see. But look at that in the top left hand corner, we moved up into P3 now, and look at that. Also, Lando Norris is on the hard compound tyres, so we've actually got a chance at maybe getting a podium from the back of the grid in not even a maxed out car right now. So I think this strategy must be doing wonders for us, being in clean air. Lewis Hamilton is out of this Grand Prix. The leader of the championship and the race at one point is now out. Lance Stroll's out as well. And I think that's giving Valtteri Bottas the best opportunity at claiming maximum points ahead of his rival. Let's take a look at the replay and see what must have happened. And oh! Lewis Hamilton just decks it into the barrier at such a high speed. I think he must have got the DRS flowing. And with a huge wobble like that, there's no saving the car, as Stroll also then just crashes into the back of Lewis, and the same does for Ocon into the back of Stroll. But let's have a look on, well, sort of off-board with Lewis. He opens up his DRS flap, and that was just the end for the Mercedes driver. It's a huge mistake, and one that could be costly for the championship. And then Stroll, look at that, he just decks it into the back. He barely had a view of what happened in front of him, just slipstreaming so much so behind, I think it was Ocon there. No, not Ocon, it must be Alonso, as Ocon crashes into the back of Stroll. He must have done the same as what Stroll did to Lewis. But also, notably, Tsunoda, he's got some front wing damage from that incident, so he's going to have to pit as well. And so do we. We decide to jump into the pit stops, maybe making a bit of an early pit stop to go onto the softs. Now, if you think about it, we're getting a free pit stop right now underneath the safety car, and the safety car is going to be out for a few more laps left. Yeah, it's going to be out to like lap 14 at least. So we're going to have at least 2 laps underneath the safety car on these new soft tyres. So we're not going to be using and wearing them out as much as we would not underneath the safety car. So realistically, we've only got about 8 laps to go racing on these soft tyres. So if we can make them last the distance, then we've done this strategy to perfection today. I mean, obviously we've had a bit of luck, but sometimes you need a bit of luck in your strategies to make things work and get you up into those points positions. And that's what we've done today. We gambled from the back of the grid, and we're in P8. So, and there's still a few more cars ahead of me yet to make their pit stop. So once they come in for their pit stops, whenever they do, which is surely going to be soon, as they need to come onto the soft tyres, we're going to be in a net P3, P4 position, which is just insane because we've never been that high in this season yet, in this career mode. So here we go. The safety car's coming in on this lap, and we're about to go racing. The green flags are about to be waved. We're looking at our tyre temperatures, seeing if they are warm enough, as the green flags are now waved, and we're chasing after the back of that Red Bull Perez. We're chasing after him down into turn 1. We don't manage to get him on this overtake. Maybe we could have looked down the inside. I just didn't realise there was going to be that big of a gap. But anyway, we play the patient game down into Eau Rouge, and this is where most overtakes happen in Spa. So we've now got the best opportunity to catch the Mexican Red Bull driver, as we're now looking to get in his slipstream ERS flowing. We're having to use as much as possible to maintain that pace of the Red Bull. Going round the outside, we fake to the left, go round the outside into turn 7, close the door into turn 8, and we managed to make that move work so well against a Red Bull driver. The Red Bull's such a better car than the Shocks GP car is this season, and somehow we managed to make an overtake on it, which just goes to show you don't need the best of power units to be able to make the move on the fastest car on track. You just need ERS and slipstream, and that's what we're doing. So on Carlos Sainz, make a bit of contact going onto the grass at Blanchimont, and it looks like we're taking a bit of damage to our front wing as we enter turns 19 and 20 now, trying to make the move on Carlos Sainz, and he lets us pass finally after barging us off the track when he just didn't see us coming round the outside of Blanchimont. Maybe he just didn't expect a car like mine to be able to make the overtake on a Ferrari, but we've done so in this case at the Belgian Grand Prix, where our power unit is coming in clutch right now. However, if we want to maintain this position, we need to be driving to the max, as we've now got a bit of damage to our front wing, and we're going to have to survive the rest of the race like it. As we see just up ahead, yellow flags once again, and Valtteri Bottas is out of this Grand Prix. He parks up on the left hand side just before the start finish line, and that is his race over, in a race where he could have gained so many points on his championship rival Lewis Hamilton. His car's failed him, and that's so disappointing for the Finn. He could have gained maximum points on Lewis, and Mercedes have not kept up to their promise and not given him a car they can fight the championship with. And maybe, just maybe, that's Mercedes pulling the strings and team orders a little bit to be able to give Lewis Hamilton the World Championship and not Valtteri Bottas, because they know Lewis Hamilton could be on for a monumental 8th consecutive win. But right now, on board with us, and we make the move on the second Ferrari car from way back down in the Kemmel Straight, and what a move that was. Once again, another Ferrari didn't see the Shocks GP coming in the rear mirrors, and we make that move on Charles Leclerc that time on the faster tyre as well, and now he looks to be frustrated and he wants to claim back that position, but we're saying no, he's not having any of it. This is our day, this is our P4 position. Round Podium, he has the inside line, but we using ERS so much that we can keep ahead of the pace of that Ferrari car, and we just about managed to make that move stick. 2 laps later though, and we haven't managed to gain any more time on Leclerc, and I think our softs are now beginning to wear out a little, and the tyre advantage is becoming much more similar to that one of the Ferrari, as Charles Leclerc looks to make the move round the outside into turns 13 and 14, but we keep our foot in, close the door on the Monaco man, and that's about that for now. But look at that, Perez, Leclerc, and I think Sainz is also catching up, so we've got to be doing a stellar defensive job if we stand any chance of keeping this P4 position, and just hope that they battle it out between themselves for P5 instead. So as it stands right now, Daniel Ricciardo leads the way of this Grand Prix in P1, and Lando Norris rounds off that second place. So both McLaren drivers are doing an amazing job where Mercedes failed to deliver. Max Verstappen in third place right now, myself in P4, Perez P5, Leclerc P6. But what's this? Up ahead, Max Verstappen spun it into the wall and he's out of this Grand Prix. Max Verstappen, another top driver, spinning it at that same position, and this time he can't manage to save his car like Lewis Hamilton did and spins it into the wall. He just keeps his foot on the accelerator, and that just turns him round and smacks him into the wall and disables his front tyre. So it's now myself in P3. We're in a podium position for this Grand Prix in a car that shouldn't be nowhere near this position, but right now we got to do everything we can to keep this position, keep this momentum going. Both McLaren cars leading the way, and I don't think we're going to be able to catch them on the restart, so we're going to be trying our best to defend against the likes of Perez, Leclerc and Sainz all behind us, all quicker cars behind us. So before we do that, we've got to warm up the tyres, make sure they're nice and ready and raring to go for this last sprint race to the finish line. 2 laps to go until the end, and it's all or nothing for us right now as the safety car now comes into the pits. Ricciardo leads the way, Lando Norris in second place. They both get a great exit off that first corner, and we are just going to be a sitting duck for this P3 position. Gonna have to park our car so well in these corners in this last little sprint race, but right now we're gonna have to be defending against the likes of Perez, Leclerc, Sainz. They're all right behind us as we make our way down into Radio Rouge, hoping that we don't make a mistake through this corner, which we don't. And now we come through onto the Camel Straight. We have to be weaving our way, trying to break the toe of Perez. He's right behind us. Look at that, weaving left to right down into turn 7 and 8. We move back onto the racing line, park our car in the middle of the track, trying to not let him pass. But as we move down into the Podium section of the track, and we've gone a little bit wide here as the soft tyres are now starting to depreciate, and that's allowed Perez to come through on the inside into turns 13 and 14, but we're not letting him pass, acting like a mobile chicane right now for that Red Bull and those Ferrari drivers. But now as we enter sector 3 of this track, it's going to be crucial to use our ERS at this point in the race. We've been saving it up for when we need it the most, and now is that time, hoping that they fight between themselves for that P4 position, whilst I maintain this podium spot, hoping that we can get onto our first podium of this career mode in this race today. And as we enter the last chicane of this lap, we're still managing to keep all 3 drivers behind us, and we've only got one more lap to go until the finish line. Daniel Ricciardo sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, so he's going to take maximum points here today unless another driver can snatch it off him in today's race. Going through turn 1 now, and it's a sprint race to the finish. Like I said before, this is a crucial point in the race for overtaking, and I don't think they're going to get me into Radion, but they might just get me into turns 7 and 8 down the Camel Straight. Can they do it? They're so far back though as we enter the first section of the Camel Straight now, weaving left to right like we're in the last lap, trying to break the toe of Perez, but he can't manage to get close enough to me. He's nowhere near close enough to make an overtake, and we managed to keep this position for now with only sector 2 and sector 3 to go. There's not long left of this Grand Prix, but for me it's going to feel like an eternity trying to keep these 3 drivers at bay, as Perez now makes the move down the inside of us as we go wide with these soft compounded tyres that are wearing away like crazy. And now we're side by side going through turn 11, but we say no, this is our position, this is our fight to win, and that's what we've done here today in Spa. We're keeping this podium position alive right now, but for how much longer? Look at them in the rear mirrors. They're so close to my rear end. The pressure is unbelievable right now, but we just got to keep a calm, level head and get us through to the end of this race. But they're basically pushing us through into turns 16, but we've got one more straight to go, one more straight until we see that beautiful checkered flag of the finish line. But also one more chicane for them to make a last ditch attack on us to dethrone us from this podium position. Can we hold on? We've had 2 red sectors up until this point, so it's not looking good for us. But that won't matter at all if we manage to keep this position and get onto that 3rd step of the podium into the last chicane. They won't make the dive bomb on us this time, and we managed to do it. We managed to get 3rd place in the Belgium Grand Prix. Daniel Ricciardo takes 1st place. Lando Norris rounds it off for the both McLaren drivers, and we pick up that 3rd place position from the back of the grid. Oh my lord, what a race that was. If you haven't seen any drama from F1 2021 yet, then you surely have now.
Brilliant stuff from McLaren today. What a superb victory. What do you think it was, Ant, that gave them the edge over the competition today?
A reliable car, that was the most important factor here. This was a real battle of attrition, and you could tell those at the front were trying to find a balance between running their outright pace and taking care of the car to reach the end.
Our drivers are making their way out for the podium celebrations, and it's going to be McLaren picking up the winner's trophy. Congratulations to the entire team for that fantastic performance.
What a beautiful sight that was, seeing us up there on the podium, and hopefully that'll be the first of many of things to come. So if you're a new watcher around here, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below for more races like this, because this was the best race of the season so far. Not only for myself, but also for Drugovich. He had an immense race, getting up into P12 from also the back row of the grid. So a great race for Shogs GP today. Unfortunately, he missed out on some points, but I don't think that will matter to him, as I'm sure he'll get some points very, very soon. So to round up, both McLaren drivers take top spot today. We get 3rd, Perez takes 4th. Ferrari follows in behind with 5th and 6th. And then you got Alfa Romeo also picking up some points here today. But on a day where Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen both crash out of the Grand Prix spectacularly, Mercedes failed to deliver Bottas a title-winning car, and that leaves the race for myself and the McLaren boys to pick up the points when we need them the most. But thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy today's video, then be sure to hit that like button and subscribe down below.